start admitting people.
Hello, everyone. It's Berkeley time, so I guess we could start. Welcome to our third week of DECODE Silicon Valley Startup Success. As we usually do, we will have the first 10 to 20 minutes of topic overview led by our student facilitators. Then we will have an hour of speakers' content, including Q&A session at the end. And then lastly, we have 30 minutes for both logistics and the discussion section.
All right, so for today, the topic that we're going over is minimum viable product, or for short, it's MVP. And basically the technical definition of this is a very early version of a product with just enough features to satisfy early customers and provide feedback for future product development. And basically, in other words, it's the simplest thing, the most basic you can get and test with, see if there's some problem solution.
Hello, are you guys able to hear me?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I thought it's my internet. So, all right. So I like cars. So let's say that I want to manufacture a car. So what would be the process of developing the MVP? Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So the entire process of a car is to be a vehicle and provide transportation, right? So we will start off with maybe a skateboard, and then a scooter, and then maybe a bicycle, motorcycle, and car. And if you see the above pictured, this one. If you see the above picture, it's just a tire. So, and two tires that really doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't provide the customer with the purpose that a car should be. So the bottom portion is a good example of the MVP, and the top version is pretty bad. So what we can learn from this example is that keep in mind what your goal is while creating your own MVP. As you can see on the bottom picture, each of the machines are able to meet the requirement, meet the goal, which is to provide transportation and their vehicle. On the other side, the top pictures is not able to do so. And in other contexts, so talking about architecture, so the left side would be an example of MVP because it's super simple, yet it gives the right idea to the end user. And the end user could be like the company, the city council, or the government, because they just need to get the idea.
So before we get into some examples, I just wanted to say, sorry, my Wi-Fi just completely kicked me out of the meeting, but I think Jin did a good explanation of further of what an MVP is. But similar to last week, I'd like to provide some real life examples about companies and their respective MVPs that they developed. So first up, as you can see, is Dropbox, and their minimum viable product was actually a video that they created before they even had their program. So this company did not have any infrastructure in place. There was also no software or hardware, and but they sent out a video detailing what the idea was. And this idea to send out this video was pretty strategic because they could see if their idea was something that people would want and people needed. And it definitely was something people wanted, as 70,000 people hopped on board on this idea overnight after the video released, proving that there was potential for this company. Next up, another example is Zappos, the online clothing and shoe retailer. So the founder of this company, their MVP concept when the company was when the company actually had zero inventory. So basically they were advertising shoes that they didn't have in their own inventory, which is a little counterintuitive. However, what their technically MVP was designed after was what he did was that he would go to the local Foot Locker store in person, the founder, and he would take pictures of all the different shoes that they had on the shelves. And the second that a customer would see a picture of a shoe they wanted online on the programming in front of you, they would order it online. And then the founder would actually go in person himself to go to the Foot Locker, buy the shoe, and deliver the shoe. So this idea might sound a little bit silly and a little bit tedious. However, people liked this idea, and as this idea took off, he was able to adjust accordingly, obviously. But the basic point of this was his MVP was developed when this business had zero inventory. And lastly, another example to just further solidify what different MVPs have looked like for different companies. This is, if you guys can't recognize, it's Airbnb. But this is one of my favorite because basically the founders of Airbnb took pictures of their property when they couldn't pay their own high rent in SF. And so they were living there and they were struggling to make their payments. And so what they did is they took pictures of their property and put it on their website, as you guys can see. And a couple of days later, 3 people that were in town from a local conference, they were in town and didn't have a place to stay, and they were interested in renting this property. And basically they were very pleased with their experience. It was much better than a hotel because they had their own amenities. And as you can see now, their website is currently not recognizable in comparison to their MVP, which is the goal, which emphasizes how basic and early on MVPs should be.
So this one is one of my favorite quotes. It's from the co-founder of LinkedIn. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your products, you have launched too late. So it's very important to just get the basic functionality going and then immediately go to the customer and get your feedback and then make changes. If your startup is successful, like that's the best thing. So, but no one will ever remember how ugly your products looks at the day you launch. But if that is not successful, no one will care. So don't worry about that. So when we think about successful companies like Google, Facebook, and Twitter, we tend to forget the beginning from which they came. You should launch things as soon as you can, as quickly as you can, to get validating learning. Getting immediate feedback from users as to get what they actually want, but not just like assuming you know all the answers. And yeah, I also put some pictures about like the original designs of the of this company. Yeah.
So here's basically a graphic that shows the reality of what going through an MVP and going through the beginning stages of a startup looks like. So on the left, you can read how you think it's going to go is a straight line with no problems, constant growth. As time goes on, maturity increases. However, on the right is reality, how it actually goes. And in that first beginning part, there's going to be a lot of being wrong and it's going to be frustrating, but as time progresses, you're going to hit a point where things are going to start going your way. And that's all due to your MVP that hopefully established interest within customers in different markets.
So just to sum things up, MVP is a process, and for all the CS student, data science student out there, like it's kind of like infinite loop because it's never ends. The first step is to launch the MVP very quickly, get the basic functionality going, and then find the customers, and then you could do something like what the job boss did with the video, or you could do something like Airbnb, just like by creating a very basic website. And after you get the initial customer, you receive feedback. and you make change to the products and start back on and just keep making changes. So it's really it's really a fun process because it's never ending. One thing to keep in mind is that like when we say that launch the product ASAP, it assumes that it has the basic function and it works.
And lastly, to end this beginning topic overview section is just another quote, and the title is "Don't fall in love with your MVP." This is a quote by Michael Siegel, the CEO of Y Combinator. And I just think this quote's really insightful. It's hold the problem you're solving tightly, hold the customer tightly, hold the solution you're building loosely.
I will take it from there, and thank you, Jean and Rael, for the topic overview. Welcome, Kevin, and I want to introduce Kevin, who is also one of our guest speakers from last semester. Kevin is the founder and CEO of Snackpass. He is a Yale alumni and is also selected as Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2020. And just a quick introduction about the company. So Snackpass is an app that focuses on takeout services, which allows customers to order food ahead of time to pick up at local restaurants without staying in line. Founded in 2017 by Kevin Tyne, who is the CEO, Jamie Marshall, who is the COO, and Janesen Cameron, who is the head of sales at Yale University, the team boosted the company and grew largely organically in its initial market of New Haven City, and the company moved to San Francisco in 2019, where they plan to use the funds to scale the business to 100 college campuses over the next 2 years and then build out their engineering and business strategies team. So Snackpass has raised $21 million in Series A funding in 2019. And I will leave it from there, and then Kevin, you can share the screen.
Cool.
Sorry.
Should I share my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, one sec. Here we go. Cool. Okay, can you all see?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for having me back. First interesting thing. So I gave a talk this spring, and like some people heard it at Berkeley, and they applied to be interns. So we had like 4 Berkeley students intern over the summer, and we actually had one of them who graduated join full time. So there's like a really close, and I actually live in Berkeley. We based here after YC, so we've been here for the past 3 years, and it's like way better than SF. So very, you know, Berkeley holds a dear place in my heart. So really, really excited to be here again. So I've been asked to talk about this topic and like MVP iteration and making something people want. So this is basically really the first stage of the startup. And so, yeah, very excited to talk about this. So first, a sort of precursor to the points I'll make here is, I think it's really important to establish a framework for how to understand business advice and business education. And one really clear mantra that will sort of help you think about it is just the understanding that business is not a science. So here are some frameworks. And actually, funny enough, one of them is what we were just talking about. And the point I'm trying to make here is that for every framework that you hear, there's a counter framework from someone equally as successful and smart. So for example, Reid Hoffman did say, be embarrassed by your first product, right? But Steve Jobs famously said, like, we don't ship junk. We don't care about being first, we're the last. We want to just do it the best. Paul Graham, who's the founder of YC, famously said, like, talk to your customers, talk to your users. And Keith Rabois, who is a really successful founder of Open Door and COO at Square, said, don't talk to your users. They'll lead you astray. Mark Suster is a really successful SaaS founder, said, hire fast, fire fast. Whereas Brian Chesky says, culture makes you hire really slowly and be more deliberate about your people decisions. Marissa Mayer, who's an exec at Google, famously tested 40 shades of blue before choosing the right one, A/B testing every single shade. And Andrew Chen, who is a partner at A16Z, wrote an awesome article about how A/B tests really just, in many cases, don't do anything. And then YC, famous mantra, do things that don't scale in the beginning. And David Sachs, who super successful founder and investor in pretty much every company that, like all these unicorns, says to not do things that don't scale. So who's right, who's wrong? Like, that's the question. So the precursor to thinking about anything I say, and I would recommend anything anyone says to you about startups or business, is business theories are not reproducible. You can't, so like scientific theories are reproducible in an environment, but in business, you can't reproduce because you don't have the same exact circumstances. There's so many variables, so many different points in time. And so you don't really have a formula exactly for hiring, scaling, or solving business problems. What you have are heuristics, and they're very useful. But I think chess is a cool metaphor in which, in that you don't want to apply general principles universally in every situation. There's always specific situations where, you know, it might be bad advice. And lastly, no one gets penalized for giving bad advice. So I can give you all the advice here, and so can Michael Seibel. And if you end up, you know, being led astray, like, we don't get penalized. So take everything with a grain of salt. It's not a science. No one really has it figured out. You really got to think on your own. Okay, so that's my precursor to all this. Okay, so going into MVP stuff, product market fit, like first stages of startup. The most important thing to remember is that market risk is a much bigger risk than execution risk. So there was a study or a survey of like why startups fail, and the #1 reason is that there's no market need. And second one is ran out of cash, and it's probably because they ran out of cash before they could find a market need. You know, pretty much all of these are like related to not market need. You know, not get out competed. Maybe you just were making something that already is made, but yeah, most of the time it's you're not making something that has a clear customer need. And so what follows from that is you really don't want to waste time. This is for like engineers out there, like coders, or I mean, honestly, anything. Like, don't waste your time over optimizing for things that, like, for scale or robustness, unless that's what matters to your customers. You know, like I've met ex-Google engineers who like write insanely beautiful code that scales for their startup, and like they have like no users. So it's like such a waste of time. Your job is to find product market fit. And that is basically, you can think of it as you have a hypothesis that there is a need by a set of customers for a product that doesn't exist yet or doesn't exist in quite the right way. And so your first job is to validate this hypothesis and figure out if there's a need. Okay, so that leads to second theorem, which is a recommendation. So again, these are all recommendations, they're heuristics, they're not, you know, like scientific facts, and I really don't think anything in business is. So remember that, and you can't apply everything in every situation. But anyways, innovate on a few things. So I've also seen a bunch of engineers like pick a bunch of like random things that they choose to innovate on. You really don't have to innovate on things because your customer doesn't really care what's behind the hood. They just want to know it works like magic, and they don't have to think about it. So I would recommend, if you're coding something, just using these tools. They're all very fine. And get on with the narrow surface area that you are innovating on. And you have such limited resources. You only want to pick like a few things to innovate on. So again, so most customers don't really care about your technology, how you built it. Unless, of course, your customers are like, do care, like maybe they are scientists or something, or maybe they're CIOs at large Fortune 500s. Choose whatever stack will give you the most focus on building your differentiated product. And also remember the thing, like with a line of code, and this is obviously like any engine manager, but like when you write a line of code, 20% of the work is writing it, like when you're done writing it, and then the other 80% is all the way in the future maintaining that line. So the less code you have to write, the less to maintain. Okay, so this one's more of like a on the business side. I would highly recommend the Jobs to be Done framework, created by Clayton Christensen, who also wrote Innovator's Dilemma. Preferable to another framework, Personas, which is something that we've seen a lot in like marketing classes, business classes. So thanks for spotlighting my video. Okay, so Jobs to be Done is basically this idea that we're all living our daily lives and some problem comes up or some need, and we hire a job, hire a product to get that job done. Like I have a need, I have a job, I need to go to the store, I'm gonna call my Uber to get me there. That's the job to be done. And another way people sometimes have gone about thinking of what a need is with a persona. So it's like, I'm targeting like mid-20s Asian males who recently graduated college who are working in tech. That's me, by the way. So, and then maybe you'll think of like, oh, they like this, they like, you know, boba, or they like crypto or something. And I think there's a very limited way to look at it. And we could just take a few examples. So Discord. A job to be done might be I'm playing League with my friends and we need to talk with each other. Persona might be gamers in high school and college. Now, if you think about the job to be done and you talk to friends, like there's a lot of other jobs to be done that maybe Discord can solve. So for example, we actually use Discord at Snackpass to collaborate and have meetings because Zoom, you know, video isn't always necessary. And Discord, you just hop in without creating like an event. Instacart, I need groceries. I don't have time to go to grocery store. TikTok, I'm bored and want to watch something fun. Coinbase, I want to buy Bitcoin. So again, like maybe Coinbase, had they had this persona mindset, they'd say like, oh, our customer base is millennial crypto enthusiasts. I really want to understand my customer base and vibe with them. And like, that's how we're going to succeed. But, you know, maybe your grandma wants to buy Bitcoin, you know? So I think a company should focus on the job to be done and do it really well. Yeah, they don't do the persona thing. So takeaways here, people use a product because they have a job to be done, not because they are a certain demographic. So in a nutshell, like it's really useful because it states causality. Like, why do you use a product? I don't use a product because I'm Asian. I use a product because I need something. So if you're trying to solve a need, you should think about the job to be done rather than the demographic. And to that end, most customers don't want like technology. They don't want like crypto. They don't want AI. They want value, whether it's solving a problem or getting entertainment or achieving some goal. They want that. So solve that, work backwards to the technology. Okay, your initial hypothesis doesn't need to be correct. I think this one I actually didn't really realize until doing a little bit more with Snackpass and then also hearing about other companies. So here's an example. Uber started with Black Car, which is like limo hailing. They're like, press button and get a limo. And they actually raised their Series A doing limos. And then by their Series B, they got all this competition from Lyft, actually. So they pivoted to UberX rideshare at a lower price point. And that exploded. And they took that all the way to IPO, and now they're in food delivery. Now it's kind of funny. The market cap, stock's not doing that great, but one of the like biggest IPOs in the last decade. So yeah, the point here I'm trying to make is that they were directionally correct. So they figured like transportation would be mobile would be the way to access transportation. You didn't have to own a car. But they definitely didn't get all the details right. And they spent a lot of time and a lot of money. You know, they raised their Series A, it's probably like $20 million or something like that, with the wrong hypothesis initially. Not everything was wrong, but like a bunch of wrong hypotheses. But they were able to just figure in that space, like pivot, do all these little pivots into the right hypothesis. So Yeah, so the takeaway there is your hypothesis doesn't need to be 100% correct in the beginning. You may need to like just go into that space and do a bunch of learning until you find the right one. So another example, Snackpass, we didn't start with pickup or with social rewards. Just started actually where you can like log in with your .edu email and get discounts. And actually, there were two big insights in the early days that were transformational. The first was that people came for the discounts, but stayed for the convenience of skipping the line. I said, okay, well, this isn't just a way to get discount. This is going to completely deprecate the old way of ordering. And so instead of a human cashier and instead of like ordering synchronously with a credit card, that is all going to be just deprecated with mobile ordering. So yeah, we didn't start with that, and that's how it goes, I think. Tesla is another one. They started out with the hypothesis that they could just put a electric drivetrain on a Toyota, a Lotus chassis and then make an electric car. Ended up being incorrect, and they had to just like rebuild the car from ground up. So your goal, in a sense, is to, once you pick the space and the direction, try to validate your hypotheses, but then continue to correct the wrong ones, and it's okay if they're wrong. That's often the case. But at some point, you're going to spend so much time in that space that you'll be one of the few experts in the world on that, right? Like how many companies spend that much time working on whatever specific domain you're in? So that's kind of your job. Cool. Another framework for building your product is to make it stupid, impatient. It's called stupid, impatient, and mean framework. And this is something I learned from my English professor in college, a philosophy professor. So his recommendation was, when you're writing an essay, to imagine your reader is stupid, impatient, and mean. And the reason is because not because they're stupid, impatient, and mean, but because you want to write a better essay. And so they're stupid because no reader. So in that case, it was the reader. But let's just talk about the customer. No customer knows about your product and the problem in the space as much as you do. So to you, they know very little. But that's just because you've spent so much time on it. Impatient. Don't expect any customer to spend as much time or to care about your product as much as you do. Like, you're the one devoting your life to it. So they're, relative to you, very impatient. And mean, when you're writing an essay, you give yourself the benefit of the doubt in terms of like logical gaps or arguments, and they're not going to do that because they just don't care as much. They're not as invested in the correctness of the essay. So to sort of put yourself in their shoes a bit more, because you're naturally going to be very tied to what you're doing, just imagine their stupid, patient, mean, and that'll get you into a much better, accurate portrait of how your product will be interpreted. And so yeah, keep things simple, get to the point, make it a no-brainer. This one is a very loose piece of advice. Don't build anything you wouldn't use yourself. So like, you do have to make something that has a real burning need. And you'll often find that that's pretty hard to figure out. And sometimes that's even hard to figure out. Like, it's hard to invent, but then it's also hard to figure out if it actually is a need. Like, who knows? You can interview your users, but it's hard to really know unless they're paying you money. So you can do it that way, or you can just start with something that you yourself have a problem with. Maybe it's in a business setting, maybe it's in a personal, like a consumer setting, or whatever. Maybe it's in a research setting. But you really got to know the need is real, or you can, something that like your close friends, or if you spend a lot of time with like small business owners or whatever, you just like, this is a framework so that you can kind of not waste your time building something you don't need, but the need has to be real. Okay, and then another framework is basically to make it a no-brainer. If the product isn't something that, let's put it this way, make something that you would be responsible not to use. If someone can use your thing, or can not use your thing and be responsible, it's like, it's not good enough in a sense. Like you really have to be making a product that is kind of a no-brainer, is game changing. Like otherwise you have to, everything will fall from that. So you have to like acquire customers. If it's not super compelling, you're gonna have to spend more on customer acquisition. You're gonna have more churn. You're gonna have worse retention. You're gonna be able to sell things at a lower price. So the more that people are irresponsible not to use something, the like stronger your product is, and then the stronger your business is. It'll just have the legs, right? It all starts there. You can do everything else well. You can like hire well. You can make a polished thing, but if it doesn't really create that much value, then it's not going to have the legs to go the distance. Okay, so those are a bunch of frameworks. I will just touch on the thing, like, there was the slides before this on the MVP thing. Like, I think that's generally true. Now, there are also cases, so just to touch on like the shipping something you'd be embarrassed to show, right? Like the Reid Hoffman. Like there are many cases where that's not true. So, a very successful product is called Superhuman. It's an email client. The whole point of Superhuman is that it's not janky, that regular Gmail is janky, and this product is beautiful and well done. And if they followed the Reid Hoffman rule, they would not be the, $1 billion startup making a revolutionary product. So in some cases, it does make sense to ship early and be embarrassed. And in some cases it doesn't. I think so let me put it this way. I'm kind of going off the script here, but at the end of the day, your job is to, by a certain definition of success, like today, that's maybe like $1 billion to $100 billion company. So let's just say you want to build a $1 billion company. That is just a company that generates 50 million in revenue with a 20x revenue multiple. And that multiple is dependent on the margin, like the gross margin, and the growth. So there's really only three things. And by the way, you can you don't have to make $1 billion company or $10 billion or $100 billion. You can just make something that like 10 people want. You can do whatever you want, right? This is just the definition of success by, say, Y Combinator or by a venture capital firm or investor or whatever. It's not the only measure of success, but let's just use that for the sake of argument. Your job is to make a company that, for $1 billion company, generates 50 million revenue, has 20x multiple, and high growth, 2-3x year over year. So growth, high margin, and then the volume of revenue. And you can have low margin and more revenue. Like it's just balance, right? So honestly, it doesn't really matter how you get there. If you get there without doing an MVP, then you didn't need to do an MVP, right? If doing an MVP helped you get there, then great. I've been in the shoes of like being a student and learning, and we all try to take classes to learn stuff. That's like what we're used to. We take like Calc 1, Calc 2, and like we think it's like a body of knowledge. And once we know everything, we're gonna be able to master that craft, that science. And business is just not that. You really just like whatever gets you to the $1 billion company, you have to think from the ground up every single time. So that's my main advice. Okay, I think that's it. So I will stop sharing. I really didn't mean to like negate what you're teaching. I still think it's very useful to, so you can think of it as like an oral history. Like you're learning an oral history from these journey people, these like adventurers like Reid Hoffman who've done it before and have seen it play out in different situations. And you kind of hope to see, absorb some of the wisdom so that it hopefully applies to your new situation, and maybe it doesn't. That's really what it is. Okay, so I guess, is it Q&A now?
Hello, Kevin. I received a question. So your website and company seems to be focused a lot on cultures and hard work. What are your philosophy as it pertains to cultures is important and impact as a startup?
Yes. So it's very hard to define this, but first, I think the reason culture is important is because at some point you have to work with a bunch of people. So our team is 50 people now. And even at like 5 people, that's like a good amount of people. And I realized that the way when you interact with people, you can do it in a way that really rubs people the wrong way, or it rubs people the right way. And people have a lot of options to work at a bunch of places. And also they spend a lot of time working. Like if you're graduated and like full-time job, you spend like most of your time at work. So it's really important because you want to have like really happy people, really like fulfilled people, so they do their best work, and you have to work with a lot of people. And a negative person will really make everyone really upset and unproductive. And then lastly, you have to sort of like hold things like one of our principles, like what we care about culture-wise, is like people being very concise. And so everybody knows we want concise people. They can be clear communicators, say things in a few words. And so we filter out when we're recruiting people who aren't concise. So all these things are important. This is why culture is important, because you have to work with a bunch of people. They have to be happy and fulfilled, and you don't want to work with the wrong people, and you need a filter. So this is kind of like why culture is like super important. And then lastly, you want to recruit people who are like-minded. So in our situation, like on the culture side, it's basically like humble and hungry. Hungry, we're like really ambitious and want to build a $100 billion company. Humble because we know we just don't have the right answers a priori. We have to ask a lot of questions to figure it out, and anyone who thinks they have the right answer is probably wrong. Team player, we're informal, which is like, you know, we don't care about the trappings of formality. We just keep things fun and informal, and because the mission speaks for itself. And there's a bunch of other stuff too. I won't get into it, but yes, it really matters at a certain point if you want to optimize for like people and stuff.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for that, Kevin. I think we have students asking questions in chat. Snackpass
work, and like what a 409A is and stuff. Like understand the mechanics of fundraising. But in terms of like the product building side, let me think. So yeah, I would, well, one of them was we sort of applied this like Uber Eats marketplace model in the beginning. And this was actually for like first 2 years. So Uber Eats marketplace model, DoorDash, where we're trying to like go to a restaurant and be like, hey, we're gonna bring you a lot of students. And then when we didn't bring them students, they would churn. So instead we thought of a way of how to be more of a partner and say like, we're gonna help you make your customers more valuable. So onboard all of them. And then yeah, other mistakes. On the technical side, so don't give out like high titles in the beginning, like CTO and stuff, like VPs. Otherwise, you're just gonna like layer on or let them go. Really pick some good people. That being said, sometimes like you don't know until you work with them. Try to work with them in a way that's like you get to know them a little bit, even if it's like, hey, I'm gonna like contract you to do something for 2 weeks, or like as much like low commitment a way to, and it's like both ways. So you it's really important to vibe with them. Otherwise, like, and there's all these different like nuances, like maybe someone's super nice, but the way they think that doesn't really quite mesh with how you think. So just try to like, don't like jump. If you can de-risk the relationship in a sense, I would do that. There's probably a lot of other mistakes I've made, but those are a few.
Yeah, cool. I think you definitely answered the question for the most part. Rob asks how you gained business acumen to run Snackpass, and did you gain technical and business experience both at Yale or just like one?
So at Yale, I started coding my freshman year because I saw my roommates were doing it. I was like, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know like anything about it. So that's when I got kind of hooked, and just coded the whole time throughout college. And then during that time, I also tried to start a few companies, startup ideas, and learned a lot of lessons the hard way. I would say business acumen. This is kind of what I was trying to get at with the talk, which is like, there's a lot of like oral history you can learn by hearing people like me talk, looking at like the YC database, reading blog posts, and you can definitely soak all that up, that business acumen. But there's every framework has a counter framework. So how do you know when something's right, when something's wrong? You have to like learn, you have to think from the ground up for that specific situation. And then sometimes you only learn something through pain. And I actually think that there's some lessons you can't learn without feeling the pain of like messing up. Things like that, are like hiring executives that don't work out, and it's just like so painful to deal with that and manage that. I know a lot of it's people related, so it's kind of hard to. I mean, business acumen wise, you know, trying like a go-to-market strategy. One really painful thing, like when we like our server went down and it was really hard to deal with it, and like our tablets were like all affected, so we had to like go in each one and like fix it. So you know, you conceptually like stability is important, but if you don't have that memory of the pain, then it's kind of hard to take it seriously. So combination of absorbing advice, thinking from the ground up for each situation, just doing the smartest thing instead of like blindly copying what you heard in a textbook or in a blog post, and making a lot of mistakes and getting that scar tissue.
Cool. Yeah. It looks like we actually have a student raising their hand, Adele. So you can unmute and ask your question if you want.
Hi, Kevin. I just have a quick question. What was the early store like for Snackpass? How did you get that traction at the very beginning? How did you convince the store vendors? Because I have a similar startup going on with my co-founder, and we're really trying to get vendors on our side, because Snackpass has two sides, right? So how did you convince vendors to actually use your app without like a solid startup, like a funding backup, or like pretty much nothing on your back, like the initial couple of vendors?
Well, the first one, I actually knew Kadir. He owns Brick Oven Pizza in New Haven. I made a website for him before, so it's kind of like a friend thing. But then the second and third restaurant, I just, oh, there's this really good book. It's called Influence. And there's basically like 6 general ways to convince someone of anything unrelated to what the thing is. Well, actually, before I say that, I basically went to him and said like, hey, I'm going to bring you students. So we could be super, like bring you student demand. And, you know, it could be janky, but he wanted the customers. But relating to the influence book. So the 6 things, you can look into it. I won't name all 6, but some of them include like authority. So for example, if like UC Berkeley announced there was some event, you would pay attention versus like some random person on the street. So I went to him and said like, hey, like people are going to log in with their yale.edu email, like they're connected to the social clubs at Yale. So that got his attention because there's authority. Another one is social proof. If a bunch of people are doing something, you don't even know what that thing is, and you'll be interested. And so when I talk to these vendors, I'd say like, yeah, we have like X people signed up, or, you know, on the wait list. There's immediate social proof. A third way to influence someone is scarcity. So if I said like, I'm only taking on 5 restaurants, right? There's only 5 of something and it's ending like tonight. It doesn't matter what it is. You'll be kind of like interested, pay attention. And then there's like a few other things, but yeah, it's a good book. I recommend it. I think the sales ability is super important. or super helpful, I should say, for like starting a company. Like if you have a product and someone pays you money, or if someone doesn't pay you money, then it's kind of a good test that you're not really solving a need. So one of the quickest ways we've like validated certain products is we sell it to someone before we even make it. And if they want to buy it, then it's a good sign that it's worth building.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin.
All right, so moving on, Tony said that you mentioned that it's better to go with low-code solutions, so it doesn't have to be maintained as much. What programs or software do you use to accomplish that?
Well, I will say that sometimes like no-code or low-code solutions can be more of a pain in the ass. Like Webflow, honestly, kind of hard to maintain compared to like making a little HTML website. So it all depends. I was more like, okay, so just for example, like engineers will often say, oh, Heroku, like it's going to be expensive and I'd rather just host myself on AWS. And like, it's like kind of basic for like toy projects. Like we use that shit for like $80 million a year. So like I think it's like the pride of the engineer and the craft of the engineer that makes you like really want to not use things like Heroku because it's like not scalable or whatever. But like, so I'm not really talking about like no code versus low code. In some cases, those are not that great. I'm really talking about like, if there's a way to abstract something so you don't need to worry about it, even if it's more expensive, like that's probably a better use of the time. Because then another thing is like, for example, our Stripe fees are like higher now than they will be in the future at scale. So you might say, oh, Stripe's not a good solution. But we know that in the future, the fees will go down. So if, for example, we're pitching to an investor, we can say like our margins are here, but in the future, they'll be 2x better. That's something you take our word for it. That is a much lower risk than like, hey, we like spending all our time building without Stripe. So we haven't figured out all these more important customer problems. Like that's not the position you want to be in. But what tools? So yeah, I mean, if you're building an app, like GraphQL is pretty nice with like Firebase auth. Like React is really simple to use. There's a really cool thing called super.so. You can make like a website from a Notion page. I love it. Things like Twilio and Stripe are pretty like fundamental tools. I think in the crypto space, there's a lot of like sort of tools that are being built right now, a lot of infrastructure, which is really cool. Yeah, but I think just don't like, I think it's more of like an engineer trap. It's like really being passionate about like being a really good engineer versus solving a customer problem.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I guess building off that question, for the people who don't have that much coding experience, Damien asked if you have any any advice for people that don't have a lot of computing experience like you did, or a lot of people do.
So my co-founder, she didn't have any experience. So partner with someone who does. You can learn. I think it like, can you learn Chinese? Like probably, so you can learn how to code. So yeah, I think just learn or partner with someone, but sometimes that's harder, honestly.
Cool. Yeah, so Tony asked if you actually had any tips for learning how to prototype or building an MVP for software.
Yeah, there's a way to learn online, but honestly, I think the fastest way to be like, I mean, you're paying like $20,000 for Berkeley, or actually maybe it's like free for state school, which is awesome. Props Berkeley. I would like try to partner with someone on a project and just like kind of be an apprentice. Like, and Berkeley has tons of CS people, so you'll throw a stone, hit a CS student, try to apprentice, like, and try to help them out, like do their laundry or something. I think that would be a really quick way to learn. You can definitely learn on like YouTube. And I actually not like super familiar with the state-of-the-art ways to learn coding these days. I'm sure there's better people to ask on that, like in the CS department or your friends.
All right, yeah, cool. So Matthew asked, a marketplace needs 2 people. How do you get shops on board without users, and users on without a diverse list of shops?
Chicken egg problem. So there's a really cool article recently written by Lenny Rachitsky on this. So this is, again, like that oral history, right? It's just the oral history of people who've done it before in different situations. So if you have a chicken egg problem, there's a few ways to get around that. One way that's kind of interesting, it's kind of how we do it, and like a few other, like Fair does this, DoorDash did it, Airbnb, I'm sure there's like a few other ones, I just can't really remember. Or like, so basically you create a tool for OpenTable, you create a tool for the creators, like the supply, whether it's a restaurant or like a host, and you have them onboard their existing customers, but then those customers then refer other customers. So for example, Fair, which is a wholesale B2B marketplace. So they're like connect brands with retailers, like small boutique shops, I think. So the brands will onboard the retailers, their existing retailers, for free. They won't have to pay any commission to them. And then that gets them on the platform. And then afterwards, they pay for the new retailers they're connected with. So that gets the flywheel going. On a Snackpass, our restaurants onboard their customers, but then those customers then onboard other customers. So that's one way to deal with the chicken and egg problem. Another way is to just spend a lot of money. That's what TikTok did. They spent like $1 billion on content to seed the flywheel. Another way is to do the Zappos thing, which is to like ghost the supply. So like everyone from like Postmates was just listing restaurants that weren't even on the marketplace. Actually, a lot of them got kind of mad about that. Sometimes you just do it manually. Airbnb like went and just talked to a bunch of like homeowners, and like for a lot of them is actually the only way to accept online payments. Actually, Airbnb was just a tool for some of these homeowners to like accept online payments for their rental homes. Yeah, there's probably other, Uber, like they hired a lot of ops people to like go and sign up drivers. They like stand in the gas stations. So, Uber unit economics, obviously some question around that, but there are certain markets where I think they got enough of a flywheel that then they had enough referral on the platform, like drivers would refer other drivers, so they didn't have to do that. But I think in the beginning, just kind of do it manually, whatever the smartest way is.
Cool, yeah. And I guess we have another question. It says, at what point did you start searching for investors, and how do you get access to meet VCs and convince them to invest in your company in the early stages of a startup?
Sorry, what was it? Oh, it's right here. At what point? Yeah. So I guess it's kind of funny. We applied to YC and then got rejected. And then we applied to the Yale Entrepreneurship Institute summer program, and we got rejected from that. And then in the fall, it actually just picked up on its own and with like Bootstrap. So then that's when we got into YC. And then YC, we did the demo day, and that got a lot of attention. So other than like YC, we didn't really like seek funding. But then we kind of got like through that process and kind of got exposed to it. And then our Series A was preempted by like investors who already knew us, and so was our Series B. So I'm not the best example, or like I wouldn't say like I'm the best fundraiser in that sense, because like each time we're very fortunate. Okay, so the number one strategy for raising a good round is to have a very compelling company, and nothing else will replace that. And then the investors will find you. As you can see, there's a lot of capital in the world now. So prices are getting higher, and multiples are getting higher. So the real scarcity isn't capital, it's a good ass company. And then the other piece I would say is you definitely, in any negotiation, the best tactic is to have options. It doesn't matter how good you are at like talking. If you have options, that's the number one thing you can do. But yeah, I think I think having there's like the reason people go to like Berkeley is because it's like a stamp of approval, right? And one of the reasons, like for college, and there's a sort of credibility associated with it. So if you go through something like YC, or if you're like a Berkeley grad, or if you like work at Google or something, or at another startup, that'll obviously, back to the influence book, like people immediately, if they see things with authority or social proof, they'll like kind of be more swayed by it. So those things definitely help with the fundraising stuff.
All right, cool. So I guess and sort of non-professional question. Rob asked, since you founded Snackpass while at Yale in college, do you have any thoughts on how to balance school life with the startup? And did you continue to put effort into school while working on Snackpass, or did academics just take a backseat in your life and Snackpass was like your only focus?
I like basically didn't go to class, and then I took a semester off, and then my last semester I started Snackpass. So I remember I was taking like a final, and then I got a call because like the server got messed up, so I like left the final to go fix the server. So that was kind of my main priority. It is pretty, but this is again the sort of like oral history part. Like there are plenty of examples of startups that did it part-time or had like a lot of work-life balance. I personally did not. That's just kind of my style, but I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Some people just love working. I love working. Although these days, I try to really not work 24/7, try to get blood flow, and I think it helps me think better too, to not to like step out. Look, I guess if you're spending time on, I would say like, what's the point of being in school? Like if you really want to do a startup or be in tech, like why would it help?
Gotcha. I think that was some good insight for a lot of the students in our class. And then, yeah, so aside from the funding from Y Combinator, were there any other indicators that helped you decide when to scale Snackpass?
Yeah. So I would say first your job is to have that sort of like create a product that is serving a real need. And you have to sort of like envision something that doesn't exist yet, and for a customer that maybe people aren't really thinking about, or like, most people, when you're looking at any industry, you think of like the big macro trend, like it's like, oh yeah, delivery. So by being in the space and having like a more granular understanding of it, I realized like the huge opportunity with just like on-premise ordering, like replacing the register. So that's the first job. And then second job is like, once you have that killer product, if it's killer, it means like a lot of people should be buying it, or a lot of people should be using it. And at that point, you could try to scale it. And if you don't have the resources, or if you need money to hire salespeople or whatever, you could go and raise, and you can use this traction and use your vision to raise against that. I mean, you could even try to raise money even before you have the traction, because you have the vision, you're so confident that there's a need for it, but you can't achieve that yet without having like some engineering resources. So you go and raise just with the vision and with some initial tests that demonstrate that there's something there, like whether it's a wait list, or whether that's like a few like enterprise contracts, like letters of intent. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. Again, like everything I say is kind of derived from, okay, you're trying to build like a company that generates 500 million ARR, like how do you get there? So.
Yeah, cool. We also have a question about just work life in general. So Lucy asked, if you're working on something with people who you realize you don't mesh with, or they don't want to take the project as far as you, how do you go about like separating from them without ending on like a bad note?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say in this past 3 years, like learning how to work with people has been one of my biggest growth areas. Learned a ton, like was very immature in that sense, or like in just like the understanding of how to work best with people. So, and still not like super good. I think there's still a lot of ways to go. Yeah, so if you're working with someone who you're not really meshing with, well, so I think like first you have to separate professional value from personal value. You know, someone would be like a great person and they might be a terrible in this role, and those can both be true. And sometimes they get like kind of mixed up, but it's really important to do that. Second, I think, you know, in terms of just feedback in general, like there's always going to be things like you can improve, they can improve. It's a really great like feedback framework I learned from someone awesome at First Round. And I'm sure like, I think like probably like marriage counseling is similar, but like if you just like give feedback focused on the facts and the data as opposed to the intention, it helps. So for example, like if someone trying to think of like an example off the back, but like maybe in this presentation class today, I was like mad about how I was introduced, and then a bad way would be like, hey, you guys really like screwed up my introduction and weren't giving me like what I needed. A better way is to focus on the data, like what actually happened. Like, hey, like, you know, I was supposed to start at 6:30, but you all start at 6:35. And so I was waiting for 5 minutes. That's like literally not disputable, right? It's no intentions are involved there. It's just a fact. And then I could say, you know, because of that, I got caught off guard. And so if you're able to deliver feedback, starting with the facts, then you're just really able to align a little better and not get like every defensive. But then if you get to the point where it's like, it's not working out, I think try not to make it a surprise, like give feedback a lot. So by the time you have to make a decision, it's not a surprise. No one's gonna like, you know, it's just easier that way. And then, you know, I would say when you do stress both ways, be like pretty firm. You know, you don't want to kind of be open to interpretation. Yeah, and I don't know. But there's probably a lot more to be said here from people wiser than me. Oh, but I think sometimes like I'll not want to offend people, and like if you like don't choose not to work with someone, like that's kind of a big decision. But then you have to think like, are you avoiding?
Building off that question, yeah. So building off that question, based off like your personal experiences starting Snackpass, would you have hired friends or worked with friends in the early stages, or no?
Yeah, actually, I hired a bunch of friends, and they're still with us. You know, my friend Sean, he was like a close friend at Yale, and was there in the beginnings, and it makes it so much more fun that way. Certainly, it gets a little complicated. Things don't work out. So honestly, I don't know what the right answer is there. Like, it's a little bit more risky, but it could have a high payoff because it's more fun.
Cool. And yeah, I think that might be it for this chat questions. If you guys have any other questions, you can put them in the chat right now. But other than that, I can read from some of the B course submissions that we had. We had a bunch of students submit questions through that as well. Oh wait, looks like we do have another question. Sam asked, have you had any conflicts with friends at work? And if so, how'd you resolve them?
Yeah, definitely. I think just being objective, like I was saying, and assuming best intentions. Sometimes it's just good to have like a third sort of objective party, whether that's like it could be, you know, someone like neutral, like even like a coach or a therapist type, or someone who doesn't have the skin in the game, just help mediate, like a professor or something.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. It looks like Anton has his hand raised, so you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, Kevin. I'm actually a big fan of Snackpass.
Thank you.
I recently added the class, so I had no idea that you would be here. I literally was just like looking at the app the other day. So congrats on such an achievement. I was curious actually about two things. First was the irresponsibility test for viral apps like, I don't know, Prisma, you know, Masquerade, TikTok, the types of apps that, you know, are usually a fad, or maybe they are a fun app, or maybe they're a social media company. How do you apply the irresponsibility test? None of those are strictly speaking needs, those are just wants. And the second, in terms of the original seed audience that you got for Snackpass, like how many was that? Was that 5 people, 1,000 people before you actually started basically farming these people for referrals? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. In the beginning in Snackpass, like the manual process got like several hundred customers just through some flyers and like posting in social groups or like Facebook and stuff. So, from there was able to grow more organically. So a couple hundred. I was like out like handing out flyers. Honestly, it's really good feedback just to be out and talk to people about it. Yeah, as far as the irresponsibility, for sure, it's not just solving problems. It's like maybe you entertain or achieve a goal. So, you know, that's not necessarily the right framework for that end. Maybe in that sense, it's like, is it a product that like you literally can't help but use? That's what Facebook is, right? Or like that's what TikTok is. You know, even if I wanted to, I couldn't stop. It's kind of addicting in a way. I will say that like, you know, I think different people have different opinions on this. Like some like really like the hype of crypto or Clubhouse. You know, Mark Zuckerberg in the beginning kind of viewed Facebook as like a tool, as a way to get information about other people. So it's like very useful. And you know, sometimes things that have a lot of hype go down just as fast. You know, there's tons of graphs of that, whether it's like Yik Yak or, I mean, Clubhouse. So, you know, it's kind of, you die, you know, if you live by the fad, you die by the fad. So I think even if you ask the Clubhouse person, I mean, I like Clubhouse. I think if you ask that person, he would say that he's building a tool for people to communicate and hear people's voices. And a lot of the growth loops can be layered on top of it, but you do need some type of like long-term utility, right? Or just long-term enjoyment or thing you're doing. But yeah, they're like the growth loop stuff, especially with like crypto and like all these meme stocks, like it's definitely a whole new world. And I think you can, if you use that to your advantage, like why not? But it doesn't replace jobs to be done, I think.
Okay, yeah, so we're actually approaching 8 o'clock slowly. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and ask 2 more questions and that'll be it. So yeah, so Jason asked, what motivated you and your team to keep going whenever you face a setback, and what did you tell yourself if there was a challenge?
Oh yeah, I mean, like at the height of COVID, like last April, you know, people were like, oh, well, college campuses exist after COVID, right? So some pretty existential moments then and other points. So definitely some hard moments, I will say. What kept me going? Well, first, I think putting in perspective, like, you know, I am very fortunate to be able to have a living trying to build new things. So it's like, I mean, first, I'm not trying to like downplay the mental stress and stuff, but I think if you kind of look at it a little differently, it's like very fortunate in any situation, even if it fails, you've learned so much, and it's better than like not failing at a cushy job at Google. But I think it's important to be intellectually honest, right? You don't want to just keep going at something that's not going to go anywhere. And so what really helped me understand, like, this is something to continue working on, even if college doesn't fail, just like remembering all the times, like we've talked to customers and say they like freaking love using Snackpass, remembering all the times I like used it or I couldn't use Snackpass and thought how dumb it was to wait in line at Mezzo for like 2 hours. And understanding that the entire market size, like just because, you know, people be like, oh, like why doesn't DoorDash do it, right? Like, okay, well, why are people still paying that, you know, using credit cards or registers? Like it's clearly not happening. So just understanding that it's, maybe people have a sort of like trend view of the world, but if you look at the actual reality, like things aren't changing until like Snackpass goes and change it. So we got to go and do this. So.
All right, yeah. So we have time for one last question. So I guess that'll go to Claire. Claire asks, so when you guys first started Snackpass, did the money for users to get free boba or pizza slices come from the company or the stores?
That's a really good question. So in the beginning, we didn't have any money, so it came from the stores. And then when we got a little bit of money, we thought, hey, maybe we can like subsidize stuff. But then, and this was more of like, the last year or so, like we realized like, okay, but that cuts into your margin. And then also, if that's the only way you're getting users, then it's just going to get more and more expensive at scale. So now we really don't pay for any promotions. It's all like stuff that the restaurant wants to do. So that was one of the learnings, actually. Now that being said, like DoorDash spends like a bajillion on user incentives, and Uber does too. Like sometimes it works, but in our case, it didn't make sense.
So just like a follow-up, so like Snackpass just makes revenue from like, I guess like stores like giving a profit of like the orders that Snackpass is given, correct?
Yeah, exactly. We take a transaction fee, similar to like Toast and all these. It's just, and it's like more than 10x lower than Uber Eats and DoorDash, which is like 30%.
And then it's the stores that, for example, if they use Snackpass like more than 10 times for like a poke, they get like a free poke, like it's provided by the store itself, not Snackpass. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're running out of time, and thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us. And as time-wise, we have to move on for logistics. And then we greatly honor to have you for our class, and we appreciate your decision of sharing your knowledge with our community. Thank you, Kevin.
Cool. Thank you. I did see some questions about like interns and stuff, and yeah, so we are hiring. My email is kevin@snackpass.co. So if you just have questions or whatever, feel free to reach out to me.
Yes, great. Do you want me to type your email address or?
Yeah, go for it.
Link? Is it?
Just kevin@snackpass.co.
Okay, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then we will move on. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, everyone. It's great chatting with you all. We'll leave the call. Thank you.
Thank you. And then before we go over the logistics and the upcoming assignment, first of all, we have a special guest for today's session. It comes to our attention that there might be some confusion about our policy on the linking posts. Thus, we have invited Gerald, who is the Chief Operating Officer and an advisor for our class and also the overall DECODE organization. He is also the Berkeley alumni, and he has graduated and worked with Shuo, who is our last speaker, together at LVC for a long time. He will be sharing his thoughts on this topic, and then welcome, Gerald.
Hey, thank you guys. Hi everyone, happy to be here. For those who haven't really seen my name pop up on the Discord server yet, my name is Gerald, and I, along with Shuo, who was the speaker last week, have been advising DCL. So many of you might not have realized it, but really my purpose here today is to share more about what DECODE is, and let you know that DECODE is just it's actually a much larger organization beyond just this decal, or rather like a student club on Berkeley, where you might have come across some of our volunteers or I guess members. So especially since this is past your airdrop deadline, I think the purpose here is really for me to let you know what other resources we have as DECODE to fully engage you, the community, to let you know, I guess, how what other advancements we have as DECODE and what other amazing initiatives we have launched. So, but first, a little bit about myself. as what Serena has mentioned, I'm a Cal alum, graduated in 2013, majored in econ, and actually went to school together with Shuo. So we actually met because we were taking the same classes over summer. And then we have like a funny story where we were in the campus bookstore, and then we were somehow like looking at the same book, and then I was like, yeah, that's definitely someone in my class. So we kind of bonded that way, and we have just maintained this friendship ever since. So I started my career after graduation as a consultant with Deloitte. I worked in SF for a few years, and then I moved back to Singapore, and currently in Singapore now, mainly helping out with my family business and running my own startup in the automobile and fintech space. So currently, I'm also involved with IOVC, which is Shuo's fund. We started working together, and I mean, as what Serena said, the CEO of DECODE. So for all of you who have no idea what DECODE is really all about, it's in a very short phrase, it's really a think tank trying to focus on the future of work. And our mission here, we are actually a non-profit organization, and the mission is really to, I guess, decode the future of work and bridge academics with industry requirements. So we know that because of exponential technologies that's advancing, new jobs are created, jobs are different, the way people are getting hired, the way people learn are all different. So we want to have this goal or a DECODE is to really help members of our community to really understand what's coming up next and how do we adjust with the new technologies and how do we adjust with the workplace and workforce and everything regarding work. So we do this mainly through 3 pillars: events, publications, and experiences. Some of you or most of you might have heard of our annual conference and our virtual speaker series. So these are events that we invite like really industry experts. Some of the speakers that we have invited previously include the co-founder of Siri, board member of Tesla and SpaceX, CEO of Zoom, CEO of like Google Ads, and many more other notable speakers. And I mean, you guys at this class would definitely get exposure to some of our amazing speakers. I think in a few weeks time you would have CEO of Reddit come online, and we have also invited Michael Seibel, which is the CEO of YCOM, sharing on this class. So so this is part of like the event side of it. We do have a publication side of it, which we are launching initiatives to start co-writing industry research reports with our speakers. So this is something new and something in the works. If you're interested, definitely hit me up. Yep. So, and then the last area is also the experiences, right? So this is where this decal actually really falls under experiences. And the idea of experiences is really to like provide our community members with real world experiences to various career paths. So for instance, this class will be a way to bridge into being an entrepreneur or founder. And we also launched a VC fellowship, which I think some of you might have heard from Serena previously, which is a way for people to understand what venture capital, a career in venture capital is like. So we launched that, and we're also running a syndicate soon. Basically, it's for accredited investors to start putting money and starting angel investing in startups and early stage startups to begin, to be more specific. And we are keeping that those off like end of this month. And we are also, because we are launching both, I guess, this class which is like more catered towards founders, and we have another one that's more catered towards like the investor side of it. It just makes sense to bridge these two initiatives together. So we will be launching something to connect founders with investors in the community for fundraising purposes. So if any of you here who are currently running a startup, having a startup looking for early stage of fundraising, definitely hit me up. You can reach me out on Discord, or there. I mean, among our in our mailing list, you will probably receive like a newsletter of sort. And in that newsletter, I'll include a link for you to fill in details of your startup, and then we'll take it forward from there by sharing our I guess our investor community to see if anyone's interested in meeting you guys, and we can follow up the conversation from there. So I mentioned all these initiatives. I mean, I wanted to let you know that all our initiatives and activities are actually reviewed and reported to our board of directors every half a year. So we generally have our board meeting in June and December. And so yeah, like now, what is the board of directors, right? Like we actually select our board of directors very carefully, consisting of a mix of both industry professionals and people with academic background. So like, for instance, we have the CTO of Berkeley. I mean, we are all from Berkeley, right? We have the CTO of Berkeley. We have the Chief Privacy Officer of Google, VP Engineering at Google. We have the CTO of Microsoft US. We have a few faculty members from Berkeley, Harvard, Brown, Singularity University. And last but not least, we have one amazing educator. She's called Esther Wojcicki. Most of you might or might not know of her. Her nickname is actually called the Godmother of Silicon Valley, and she's named like that. I mean that she has this nickname because she is an educator by nature, and she raised 3 really successful daughters, and one of which is the CEO of YouTube. So we got her on our board, and we're happy to have all of these amazing people to share their knowledge and to oversee every of our initiatives, including this DECODE as well. So this is all, I guess, generally all about DECODE in a nutshell. There's definitely a lot more information if I've left out, and I don't want to bore you guys off. But now the real question regarding this class, like, how does this all tie in? And like, I guess the real reason is like, why am I really here, right? Main reason, I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, is for me to let you guys know that we at DECODE very supportive of your growth here. And as you can see from our connections and our board of directors, we have a huge amount of resource we can actually let you guys leverage on. Most of the times, like, students do not know how they can engage with us. And so really, like, I'm just like a text away on Discord server. And that's the reason why we actually got all you guys on Discord. You can connect me in LinkedIn anyway for me to reach out to you or for you to reach out to me. We definitely like make use of the people of all our working professionals or all our, I guess, our board members and stuff like that. If you guys need any help in any way regarding a startup, regarding studies, regarding career advice, anything like that. So that is one area. And we wanted you to also understand that this goes beyond this class, this semester, or even your time here at Berkeley. DECODE is past like just a student kind of thing. It is unlike any other class that you take, which is just one semester, unlike any other student club, which is just your time at Berkeley. We are like, I guess you could call it like, we have alumni and students working with us together, along with faculty members and industry professionals. So it is pretty unique by itself. And we work closely with SCT to I guess, do up this class. In fact, this is one of the first entrepreneurial courses on campus back in the days to provide like the whole academia and industry exposure. And this is one of the reasons why we are the only DECODE that can contribute to the SCT certificate. And because we have really close ties with them. And over the semester of us running these DECODE, I think right now about 4 years now, we noticed that a lot of there are more entrepreneurship classes that are coming out among like the various schools and degrees now, and they have very similar structure to us as a DECODE. So now, I mean, DECODE, we are, I mean, obviously all about entrepreneurship. We are constantly thinking like, how can we innovate and what it really differentiates us from other classes, because students in other classes, they have industry professionals coming in. They still do the pitches, they do group work. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, what is differentiated is just the speakers, right? But for us now, like, we think that what differentiates us is actually what we put our students to actually go through and to actually have a value at the end of the day. So what I mean by that is we don't want students to just reuse content that or past pitches that other classes have done, because we've been noticing that quite often over the last few semesters that students just copy and paste pictures and like for one class and they use it for another class. They don't improve much. And at the end of it, it's like, why are you even doing this, right? Like, what's the value add to you as a student? Are you wasting, you are kind of like wasting your opportunity here at Berkeley to learn more. So we don't want that to happen. And that's why we are kind of revamping a little bit of the class experience and the curriculum to really address what it is like to experience entrepreneurship in the real world. And so one of the main changes that we're actually doing this time now is to place more focus on the problem instead of the solution. And let me repeat this. If we want to focus more on the problem now, I know like most of you will be like, I have this idea and I have this solution. I want to pitch this. Those are all very solution based. And the reason why we are focusing a lot on the problem is that after hearing like many batches of pitches, we realize that a lot of the pitches are not really addressing a main problem. And one of the main factors for that is that students don't really spend nearly enough time to research the problem carefully. They don't go to talk to people. They never really understand the whole industry that the problem lies in. So that's where the whole focus of this class is going to be resting around. The actual end result, the pitch, the solution that you have is not nearly as important as the process that you go through to actually identify whether a problem actually exists or not. And I mean, like the real world, like sometimes your first startup might not be successful. So your first problem might not be the right one. Like there might not be a problem after all. After all the work that you have done, all the research that you have done, or talking to people, and you realize, oh, maybe that's not a real problem. So yeah, so I think let's just focus on the problem for this, this class, and instead of having so much focus on the solution side of it. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. Wanted to also address like some of the factors that you guys have brought up to our facilitators, Serena and team, and Amir and Rio. So one of the areas that we want you guys to share and work among your teams is really to address the different kinds of categories of students that come in our class. There are some of you that are like, okay, I have a startup and I want to launch something, or I'm working on something already. Those are like the super dedicated people, and we don't want to restrict you. We want to we want to reinforce you and really expedite your growth. So like we are allowing you to actually form your own teams. Whether is it you want to do a solo, whether you want to do a pair work, you want to do it in like your original co-founders, we are okay with that. Just know that for solo work, just like in a normal, I guess, in a real startup, like as a solo founder, you are going to pick up a lot more work than if you have other co-founders with you. So similarly, there will be minimum requirements as a teamwork here. And if you want to do it solo, you have to do like you have to still meet the minimum requirements, which is a little more work than rest of people that are working in groups. So that is one area. The other area is regarding the problem, or I guess solution in a sense. We don't really want to restrict you as well. You are free to explore everything on your own. The reason why we want to have this voting mechanism here is that for the people that do not have anything fixed in mind, they are still exploring, right? Like, oh, I don't know if I want to be an entrepreneur in the future, or I don't know, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be the founder, but I don't know what problems I'll have to work on. So for this, we want people to all vote on to give a helping hand to these people so that they know what are the most popular problems and most likely to succeed among the student community that you guys have voted on. So that is where we are coming from. And yeah, so I think those are the main ideas that we are trying to address here. You are free to choose your own team. You're free to choose your own problem. Regarding the LinkedIn post as well, one of the regrets that I have actually coming from personal experience is that I have not made as much connections as I wish and maintained as much connections as I wish back in college. And so the idea here is that we aren't going to force you to stay on LinkedIn or anything like that. Our intention is really to help you get the visibility that you need. So it's going to be optional, and I think Serena and team has already announced in the class through B courses that it is purely optional. The benefit of doing it is that our team here at DECODE, whenever we get a tag notification, we'll look at it, and if it's something that is really like impressive or noteworthy, we would share it with our board, and we'll tag like Shuo and our board of directors to on those posts. So you get a lot more visibility that way, and that's like an incentive for the class. So yeah, with that, I mean, like, really like to, I mean, open it up to the floor to see if any of you have any further concerns, questions around what we have. Serena would definitely send out another, I guess, a survey form for feedback, for you to submit any feedback, recommendations, suggestions for us anonymously, and we'll make sure to address all of those in the future classes. So yeah, this is all I have for today. I know I took up some of your time, but yeah, hopefully it helps to clarify things, and definitely reach out to me or on Discord. I'm always there. Yeah, and I'll try to get back to all of your messages. Yep, and opening on the floor now to any questions. If not, I guess Serena or Amir, you guys could take over from here. All right. I think it seems like I don't see any questions. So,
hey,
Amir and Serena,
Gerald,
sorry?
can you hear me?
Yep.
You said that.
Saying like, oh, this is like something, this is something that I randomly want to shop to my community. Do you guys experience this, right? And if there's a lot of feedback and comments on that, we would tag it because we feel like this is beneficial for members of the tech community. And ultimately, like whatever lessons or insights that you guys find out from not meeting people, from talking to people, like as long as it's something that we feel like it is super helpful for other people, like it could be very simple, like mistakes that I've learned from like running a podcast, right? I mean, obviously that's not going to answer your questions, but it could be something like that. Like it could be like a post like, I have read my podcast and these are some of the mistakes that I've done, and I would not want any other people that are doing a podcast in the future to fall under. And we feel like these kinds of things that are really helpful for the tech community, for entrepreneurs and every other marketer, right? So we would definitely like tag our board of directors for those kind of posts. So it's really nothing like firm, but it's more fluid, and it's really anything that you feel like, oh, it's a huge value add to the community. That's what we really want out of you guys, right? And to build the whole debate, the conversation, discussion, and that's the intention of us making it all in LinkedIn. I hope that addressed your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I think I dropped off because my laptop was froze. And then the feedback form is in the most recent announcement that I sent out this week. It's at the very bottom, and if you guys could go over the announcement, you should be able to find it on there. It will stay open throughout the semester, and then I will continuously check the feedback form.
Yep, I do see a question from, I might be butchering your name, but like Shravan. Hopefully I pronounced it right. Is there a way to help form groups, right? I think, yes, there's a way to help form groups. Serena and Amir have, and Rio, your first layer, have that plan already. They'll be creating more sessions for you guys to network with each other. And also, when you guys fill it in like your top voted topics, that's where we kind of identify like people that are most likely to work on a certain topic. And that's I guess the purpose behind us having this voting mechanism, where you might not be wanting to work on that problem because you have your own startup. But if you vote on a problem, you're actually helping other people to decide what they want to work on and pair into groups. I mean, not really pair, but like form into groups more easily. So hopefully that addresses your question, Shavran. Sorry.
It's Shravan, but yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think we kind of have to move on because the time wise, and then we still have a few logistics, and then also the attendance form for today.
Yep. I mean, feel free to ask me any questions on Discord. Like you could just search my name. I'm always like at the admin there. Just text me individually if you guys have any more further questions. if you guys want to complain anything about DECODE as well, I'm probably like the right person to reach out to. So definitely do that.
Thank you, Gerald. And then I guess Amir can take on from the logistics.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Serena. I'm gonna try to make this quick just because we took a lot of time already. So in terms of logistics for the week, just a reminder that week 2's assignment 1 is due today before class, so please submit that as soon as possible if you haven't, in order to receive late credit. And also for those of you who joined our class late, please email us so that we can give you extensions on all the assignments that have been due previously. And then for week 3's assignments, those can be found on B courses, and they're all going to be due this Friday at 11:59 p.m. It's really simple. All you have to do is just like a very few things. It shouldn't take you more than a couple minutes, so I highly recommend getting it done early so you don't have to worry about it later. The other assignment for this week is going to be due next Thursday, September 23rd, before class, and we're going to be sending out a Google form once everyone has their idea on the Excel sheet shared. And all you guys have to do is choose your top 3 favorite ideas, and we'll go ahead and decide the top 10 for you. And just so you know, you can form your own groups. So go ahead and reach out to some classmates if you haven't already, if you want to do that. And then finally, the third assignment for the week 3 is actually going to be it's going to be related to week 2's assignment 1, and it's going to be due next Thursday before class. And all you're going to have to do is simply continue the peer reviews that you did previously and just provide some detailed commentary on your peers' posts. So something like this is a good post isn't really going to work. You need to put more thought into it to receive full credit. So yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you, Amir. And then we can move on to the attendance. So the attendance form for today, you can scan the QR code, and then let me also send the link through the chat box. I will also, this is a good question. How do you vote? So you guys gonna submit your 1 sentence topic on the chosen problem by this Friday, and then once we have everyone's problems done, I will send out the form on B course. So just pay attention to the B course notification. And then the secret words today is for everyone. And then please email Jin directly, not the class. Email for attendance. She will be taking over all the attendance tasks from now on. And then you can email our class email for homework extension or other questions that you might have.
I think Milana has her hand up, so you can unmute.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question about the spreadsheet, because you said that you should write 1 sentence, and then in the brackets you said 50 to 100 words, and some people wrote like 5 sentences, some others wrote 1. And because you said one sentence in my previous assignment, I just wrote 1 sentence, and it's not 50 words, it's like 20 words, you know what I mean? Can I just edit it to like 50 or 100 now? Or
that's okay, because on our week 2 assignment 1, on the problem assignment, there is 3 sub-questions, right? And then the second sub-question, we ask you to write only 1 sentence. And then the 50 to 100 words is just a general idea that we want you to keep it short. But we do also want you to have like a more detailed description. But for the Google Sheet, we only want to do the 1 sentence version of your problem.
Okay, so I'll just then write, like, add on to that sentence here to like 100 words, right?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
If you have already filled the attendance form, no, you don't need to email Jin. The only situation when you need to email Jin is, let's say you can't make it to the class because of special circumstance, or if you have like an internet connection issue that you join the class in the middle of the class, and then she might wrote your name down as a late, but you want to explain to her that you might have like an internet connection issue. So yes, I hope I answered your questions. The word is Avalon right here. I think I'm sharing the screen and everyone can see it. you can't do attendance because you broke your phone, then I can write your name down and then your attendance will be covered. And then we always do attendance form every week we meet, but we will send out at random time. So we don't really want you to drop off after our speaker's presentation because we still have.
Sorry, I literally can't.
Oh, sorry. Do you have a question or?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So for attendance, we just go to the link that was on the page and just fill out the form, right? Or we need to email?
Right, you just fill out the form and then Jim will count you guys on the attendance. And then, does anyone else have any question? Oh, also, I want just to mention that we don't want you guys to drop off early after the speakers has finished because we will still go over logistics and other information during class. We want you to present the class by like 2 hours. Otherwise, you will count as a late as for the attendance part. And we have this feedback form, which is also in our announcements this week. So feel free to fill out that if you have any suggestion for our course or anything. And then in terms of how to form a group, we already have agreement on you guys can form your own groups. I will send out a group sign-up sheet later on in the following weeks. And then I will also holding several office hours by the following week of next week. So you guys can come to join if you want to find a teammate. So don't need to worry about that for now. And then I think that's all I have for today. And then do you guys have any questions or on the homework assignment?